Hey guys, welcome back to Disney Coffee and Book Talk. Obviously, I have a different background today. It's a little chilly, but it's also very sunny. At least not under the porch. Hence the hood. So, anyway, we are going to be talking about X-Men First Class in regards to Easter eggs. Now, I do want to make a note that while X-Men is Marvel Comics, it's not so much seen as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, right? So the timeline doesn't necessarily line up. But if you follow me long enough, or if you know me long enough, you follow me on TikTok, just a heads up, I do homeschool as well, and I do use Marvel as a part of our curriculum. That's a whole different thing. I'll talk about that in a different video, but I made the timeline including MCU, including the Defenders, in how they would generally fit per if it was straight up MCU, right? Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't multiverses, because there absolutely are, but in this regard, X-Men uh, doesn't have a multiverse as of right now, other than in Deadpool and Wolverine. But that is not this video. So, X-Men First Class, even though it wasn't the first X-Men to come out, it is seen as the first X-Men in their timeline, right? So we have Xavier and Magneto, or his actual name is, why can't I remember it? Eric Lesnar. Very young, right? They were quite young, and it starts off in 1944, where we see Eric being separated from his family at Auschwitz concentration camp. Okay, and when this happens, Eric uses his powers, and so Officer Klaus Schmidt decides that, hey, you have these powers, I'm going to use that to do harm. Now, again, this starts off during the Holocaust. Meanwhile, we have Charles Xavier in the mansion in Westchester. He's also a child. And he comes across Raven. So Raven was disguised as Xavier's mother, getting a snack and saying like, "Oh, Charles, I'll make you hot chocolate." And he's like, "Who are you? My mother would never." And that's how we meet Raven, right? And so she ends up growing up with Xavier, and he considers her as a sister. Then we fast forward to 1962, where Xavier is earning his doctorate from the University of Oxford, and Eric is tracking Schmidt, who had escaped from Nuremberg, and he's trying to find him and, kill him. So we have the CIA knows of these individuals, right? With these different human powers, right? Different powers. And the CIA starts to get some of these mutants, as they call them, specifically in the X-Men universe, to work with them as a new team. So they already have Emma Frost, who is a telepath. They have Riptide, who is a cyclone producing person, and they know of the teleporter Azazel. Azazel? I apologize. So they already know of a few. They also have Hank McCoy. However, even though Hank McCoy is actually working for the CIA, they did not know that he was a mutant. So as they're creating this team of called Division X, it's a secret team, right? And they're becoming family. Xavier accidentally says "Oh, you already have a mutant." And so Hank ends up showing the rest of the people to that he's a mutant and what his powers are. Now again, they're dividing bad mutants versus good, right? And they're going to use them against each other. So, on the quote unquote good side, we have Angel Salvador, Armando Munez, Alex Summers, and Sean Cassidy. So those are going to be on the Division X, the CIA team. The others are on, or plus Hank and Raven and Xavier. Then we have on the other side are the others, right? So their goal is to capture and possibly kill the other mutants. But not everyone accepts this, right? Like, to deal with this and to there's just a lot. And they're fighting and they're really like who's good, who's bad, although they're all mutants, but they're really working for powers or for the government that is beyond them, that actually wants to hurt them. And also near closer to the end of the movie, we actually see the accident that causes Xavier's injury, that we then see him in the future in the wheelchair, right? So he wasn't always in a wheelchair. Things happen. Everyone's disability is different, but just saying, like, yeah. So we have, these two mutant groups that are fighting each other because of non-mutant people. Anyway, that is basically the premise of the movie. Again, it kind of like introduces all the characters, all the main characters, I should say, that we're going to see in the future. Not everyone, but the general, like, main people that we're going to see. And then we're just going to dive right into the Easter eggs and talk about it because this was a very long intro. But the point is that this, in the timeline, this is the very, very beginning of what becomes the X-Men team. So as I was saying, we have a young Eric here who he shows his powers. Then we go off to Westchester, and if you notice that he has Albert Einstein on his desk, a picture to show like his inspirations of being really, really intelligent. Here we meet a young Raven, also known as Mystique in the future, and we learn that she grows up alongside Charles Xavier at the mansion, and they're basically siblings. However, what I didn't put into my summary or into the Easter eggs in this movie, Raven doesn't really take that very well. Like, she loves Charles Xavier, but not in a brotherly, sisterly relationship. She has a major crush and huge jealousy issues, and so this does constantly pop up. Then we speed up to 1962, and we jump locations. So we're in Switzerland, and we go to Nevada. We're in New York. We're in Virginia. Anyway, so as I was saying, Eric is trying to find Schmidt, and meanwhile, the CIA is trying to track down mutants who are killing people and not, how do I explain? They're considered the bad guys in this situation. We're also introduced to characters like Emma Frost and Riptide, and we see their powers. So mutants are not unknown. We also jump to Argentina, where Eric is tracking down Schmidt, and he finds, when he's fighting, this knife that says blood and honor, and it was Schmidt's knife. And, Eric says, I am Frankenstein. Hey, Easter egg to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. That meanwhile, we have, Raven and Xavier at Langley, and they build the original Cerebo, which looks like a giant golf ball to me, but we see the premise of it. This is what it looked like to enhance Xavier's powers. Then we have this really interesting scene where we see mutants learning about each other and giving themselves names, like Magneto, Professor X, Banshee, etc. We also see Wolverine on screen in terms of timeline for the first time. And when I say that, I mean in terms of learning to be a team-ish. We know how Wolverine is. The idea of this is that Wolverine Origins hasn't come out, and even then, majority of that movie is not spent in the past during World War II. It's actually quite the opposite. And same with like the X-Men movies where we learn about him, but this is like it again, according to the timeline, right? Both MCU and X-Men, if you actually look at everything by time and when it's set, this would be the first time that Wolverine is shown. This Easter egg is Xavier talking to Hank and telling him that, the author, Robert Louis Stevenson, who is the author to Treasure Island, would be incredibly proud. So, hey, cool Easter eggs, fitting in some other movies here a little bit. Now, eventually we see that Hank McCoy can no longer hold his, human form, and he continues to look like this blue creature, like this is his natural form. And he's upset by it, but also I think Raven is the only one that can truly understand how Hank feels with this, because her true form is also blue, which I find interesting. Why there's so many blue people in the in the X-Men timeline. Again, technically you could fit it into the MCU. They are all Marvel, but according to the cinematic universe, it doesn't really fit. It's a different timeline, but again, that's a whole different ballgame. So here we have, there was an accident and Xavier gets hurt, but we also see that there are members of this Division X decide to now work with Magneto and become a team, and that includes Raven, aka Charles Xavier's quote-unquote sister. And I say quote-unquote because obviously they're not biologically related, but he's always considered her that. And this whole thing is devastating for everyone, but also, in a way, Magneto is concerned for Charles. They did care for each other. It's just they had two very different mindsets of how mutants should be. And that's important to note for the rest of the X-Men timeline, because they're fighting each other because of that, but they also have some weird deep connection. Thanks so much for watching this. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are, who your favorite character is, what your favorite Easter egg is. I will see you guys tomorrow for X-Men Dark Phoenix, which really introduces the Dark Phoenix character and her development, her backstory. In terms of the timeline, although it was released much later and we have a different character than we originally do for Jean Grey, this in tomorrow's Easter egg, it's played by Sophia Turner. But I will see you then. Let me know again what your thoughts are. If you haven't already, go ahead and give us a like. Sorry, it's right here. Go ahead and subscribe and stay tuned because I got a lot of content coming.